Hey, welcome to Tales from the Shift. My name's Liz Tobin and I'm here with my husband James Dempsey. And today we're going to talk about how to use these self-paced repatternings. And the reason why we're both here is because we both have very different experiences in how we approach the sessions and the results that we see and what we notice afterwards or even during the session.
Here at Tales from the Ship, we're going to be giving you a lot of resources to use with each session. We're going to give you pre-session questions, post-session questions, and we're also going to give you a forum where you can speak to other Tales from the Ship members about your experiences. What we encourage you to do, at least at the very beginning, is to try to use all of these resources, because eventually you're going to find a method that works for you. And everybody sort of customizes their own way of how to go about using these reports.
So the first thing is that what we find is that most people in their first session have this like big bang kind of experience where it's almost like their system is saying, see, this really does work, keep going. And then they might notice that like the next session is a lot more subtle and they're wondering, well, what happened? The first one was so powerful, does this one not work for me? But what you'll find is that the sessions build one on the other, and your experience with each session is going to be different from session to session.
There's 3 parts to each session. There's a pre-session questions, then there is the session report, and then there's the post-session questions. So the pre-session questions sort of set your system up for the healing that's about to happen. And they sort of, for me, they light up my buttons, and they actually press some of my buttons. In the past, if I'm doing pre-session questions 3 or 4 days before, I have found that doing them 3 or 4 days before the actual session shows up, that I get kind of cranky, because it really does. It lights up my buttons. So I actually like to do the pre-session questions if I do them closer to when I'm going to get the report or read the report.
So people have their own way of dealing with the pre-session questions, and some people, as James mentioned, like to just go through them, boom, 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 do the questions, do the session report, and then do the post-session. Other people like to read the pre-session questions and then kind of let that stew a little bit, let that percolate a little bit, and maybe even the next day go back and write their answers to the questions, because they noticed that in their dream state they were already working on the issues. Other people, they like to, almost like automatic writing, read the questions, write down whatever comes up, and then they might go back and do it again and do it again. And it's almost like each time they do it, they go deeper and deeper into the pattern. And like we said, you'll find the way that works best for you, so experiment with it. But the main thing is to at least start doing the pre-session questions.
You're going to find over time, after a few of these sessions, that the sessions are indeed building on each other. The sessions are indeed making it so that when you're in a situation that used to press your buttons, you're going to find that you're maybe approaching it feeling more powerful, or feeling more calm, or feeling a lot less anxiety.
So the main thing that we want to stress is that reading the session report is essential. That's the one thing that doesn't change. And again, each person has their own experience. James feels it very viscerally. I
feel when I read a session report, there's always 2 or 3 statements out of sometimes 20 that really kind of bang me off the head, or feel like a rubber band snapping in my leg or something. Sometimes more than that. And other statements that come up, I don't feel anything at all. So these sessions are designed for the group that's joining this program, and the group energies are going to make a lot of different things come up. Every single one of them is important to each member of the group, but each member of the group is going to feel certain statements more strongly than others.
So where, on the other hand, I don't really feel anything when I'm reading the session report. What I do is I notice afterwards, after maybe a few days even, maybe even a week, that I notice, oh, this situation that I was worried about, all of a sudden it's not a big deal anymore. Or this interaction that is usually with this person, it's kind of a little tense. All of a sudden I feel really relaxed. So I notice as the session unfolds in my life, it's more like a holographic approach for me.
So reading the report itself is the most important thing. One of the other things you can do is you can read the report multiple times. And I find that every time I read a report is that I get deeper and deeper and deeper into my energetic system. And it seems to uncover layers and layers and layers. The same report can do this over time. Some people read the reports 3 or 4 times over a period of a couple of months and really, really, really notice the difference. The other thing that we want you to look into is the forum. After you've done the pre-session, the report, and the post-session, go into the forum and see what other members are getting out of it, because they may enlighten you about things that you didn't even notice. Like you see someone say, "Hey, that's happening to me too," and I didn't even notice.
So that's another great resource is the forum, because as James mentioned, people will bring things up into your awareness that you wouldn't think about in a million years, but all of a sudden it's staring you in the face, and you're like, "Oh my God, that is so me." So it's
exactly.
So it's a really great resource, because with the group energy, what happens is each person contributes a piece of the wisdom and the insights. So definitely use the forum.
Remember that the sessions build on each other, and we have an example here of how that works.
Oh yeah, I want to tell you this story about Kim. So Kim was doing these sessions, and she was going to write to me and say, you know, I want to cancel my subscription because, as she says, I was dead broke because of the dance partnership I was involved with, and I was traveling to New York City every week, taking lessons, competing, etc. I was spending much more than I was actually earning. And in addition to all the other debt I had, it was just all starting to add up rapidly. Somehow, I decided I should stick with the group. Now, here I am, with all of my debt almost completely paid off and more money than I've ever had in my bank account. Of course, help came when I needed it most, and things changed. I feel very capable of keeping myself in this position. I'm so comfortable financially. So thank you so much. So I think this is a great illustration of how the sessions do build one upon the other. And sometimes you get into the middle of a series and you're like, oh man, I don't see anything changing. And then you get to the end of the series and you can look back and say, wow, I've really come a long way.
And the subtle growth from session to session. Sometimes it's so subtle it's not even noticeable, and other times it's very, very profound and instant. So go and do your first session report and do the pre and post session questions and post in the forum. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.